All right, so let's start with the big story that we are tracking on WION at this hour. Amidst the American warnings of an imminent invasion into Ukraine, what is interesting is that Ukraine has pushed back against the apocalyptic assessments that have been made by the American military and intelligence, and has also played down the fears of an imminent Russian invasion. Meanwhile, international diplomacy has, of course, gone into a bit of an overdrive, with the French and the Russian presidents likely to hold talks in Moscow today, and the German Chancellor also heading to White House to meet with the American President Joe Biden. Now, to give us more updates in terms of what is, of course, happening in Ukraine, it is to have diplomacy is on a bit of an overdrive to try and see if this crisis can, of course, be resolved. We are joined in by our executive editor, Palki Sharma, who is joining us live from Kiev in Ukraine. Now, good afternoon to you, Palki. This, of course, is an interesting moment in the conflict at a time when the Americans are putting out their stark assessments that Russia is poised to carry out an incursion into Ukraine at a moment of its choosing. What is interesting is that within Ukraine, the government is trying to tell its citizens, do not pay heed to these apocalyptic assessments by the West. Are people within Ukraine convinced, or in any way do they feel more secure that these apocalyptic assessments may not be true?
I wouldn't say if they feel secure or not, Saleh, but the people of Ukraine, as indeed all observers of this conflict, notice the stark difference in tone, the tone of all sides. You know, the Russians have kept their strategy opaque and unclear. We don't know what their intention is. We don't know what their strategy is. They have kept all options on the table, and they reserve the right to act according to their president's final decision. That is the assessment from Moscow. Washington's assessments have been growing dire by the day. Interestingly, Washington does not provide any basis as to how they arrive at those conclusions when they say that there will be 50,000 civilian casualties, there will be 25,000 military casualties in case of a full-scale invasion, that Kiev will fall in 72 hours, and that an invasion is imminent. And then the latest coming from their State Department, they're saying that it could happen tomorrow, it could happen in weeks from now. That is hardly intelligence, that is a guesswork, some say. But the Europeans playing a very important role and shaping what is being called the week of diplomacy here vis-a-vis Ukraine. So as you said, that German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is in Washington, D.C., not only trying to get an assessment from what America's expectations are, but also perhaps trying to reassure the NATO allies that Germany remains a reliable ally and they are going to do as much as they can to secure NATO's eastern flank. Similarly, for France, President Macron has said something very interesting, that a diplomatic solution is very much within sight, and that Russia's intention is not so much Ukraine, but a clarification of rules with NATO and with the EU. And for that discussion, he's heading to Moscow. He's going to be meeting President Putin today, and he had a phone call with US President Biden before going to Moscow. So the French very much trying to calm down tensions. The Ukrainian government has issued two statements. The president's office saying that the chances of a diplomatic solution are, quote-unquote, substantially higher than a Russian invasion. And of course, you saw that statement from the Ukrainian foreign minister, who said that the world should not pay heed to these apocalyptic predictions. So different sides coming up with different statements and assessments. But like I said, you can spot the clear difference in the tone of all the people who are party to this conflict.
Absolutely, indeed. And also, as you described it, this is, of course, a week of diplomacy, and Emmanuel Macron will be heading to Russia and also to Kiev. I want you to weigh in terms of what Emmanuel Macron even, in fact, brings to the table. The Russian position is very clear. They want certain security guarantees. They want the frontiers of NATO to be rolled back to what they existed back in 2008. They do not want Ukraine to be included in NATO, and they want a guarantee on this front. When the French president meets Vladimir Putin, will he be able to reassure the Russian president on any of these demands?
I don't think that anyone in the NATO or Europe is going to explicitly agree to any of the demands that the Russians are making, because in a free world, one country cannot decide whether another is allowed to join the NATO or not. Having said that, I think all sides appreciate the security concerns of Moscow, and President Macron's interview before he headed to Moscow makes it amply clear what France's position is going to be. Emmanuel Macron has said that he is going to discuss the terms of de-escalation with Russia. A resolution to this crisis is not going to happen in a day or a week or even a month. This is a long-standing dispute between Moscow and Kiev, and Moscow's aspirations vis-a-vis the region and what it considered its own backyard. So that is going to take a lot longer to fix. But the immediate crisis can be de-escalated by talks. That is the hope, at least, of Emmanuel Macron, because there's more at stake for the Europeans than for the Americans. And as troop deployments go up on both sides of the border, Saleh, the window for diplomacy shrinks that much.
Absolutely, indeed. And just before I let you go, Palki, you've been in Kiev and you're talking to many of the political commentators and also the security analysts there. The fact of the matter is, this is a troop build-up by the Russians that has happened now. It's happened last year in the month of April as well. And over the course of the last few years, there's been this tension, this friction where Russia is trying to exert its control on Ukraine, which is a former Soviet bloc that broke away. On the ground, to the people of Ukraine, do you think they would feel more secure if they were to formally join the NATO alliance?
Well, they would. Having said that, I would also want to make it clear that I have not heard a single Ukrainian saying that they would want to have NATO troops on their soil. They're a fiercely proud people, and they say that they are ready to defend their country, and they see the Russian actions as an attempt at building psychological pressure, and they say they've seen this before, and this does not come as a surprise to them, and they're prepared for whatever is coming. There is a lot of anger among the Ukrainians as well, as they see this Russian aggression as their part of life, but they also realize that this is a tinderbox situation. You know, this is the biggest military build-up in Europe since the Second World War, and in situations like this, things can go either way. Sometimes unwittingly, sometimes not according to the plans of the leaders who sit in the capitals of their countries and chalk out strategies. What happens on borders can be sometimes substantially different. So all the observers of this conflict are well aware of the risks involved. It is not a joke when we say that 135,000 Russian troops have surrounded this country. Where I'm standing, this place is within striking distance of Russian troops, the Su-35 fighter jets, the S-400 missile defense systems, which have been deployed on the border with Belarus. So this situation definitely is significantly serious, but I think all sides are hoping that there will be a diplomatic resolution.
Absolutely, indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Palki Sharma, for joining us and getting us all those updates there. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.